Everyone should have a healthy distrust of the media. One of the most dangerous, unspoken things in existence in the world today is a media controlled by a very small group of corporate entities. Every day, we are constantly lied to and constantly told what to think. And most of us never even realize it. It's become a duty and call to action to wake people up to this reality. Before blindly listening to what's hurled at you, everyone has a personal responsibility to at least know what's going on before handing your mind over to the many forms of media indoctrination. In short, wake up.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you." If fool me, we can't get fooled again. For those too young to recall that clear September day, it is hard to describe the mix of feelings we experienced. There was horror at the scale of destruction, and awe at the bravery and kindness that rose to meet it. There was shock at the audacity of evil, and gratitude for the heroism and decency that opposed it. In the sacrifice of the first responders, in the mutual aid of strangers, in the solidarity of grief and grace, the actions of an enemy revealed the spirit of a people, and we were proud of our wounded nation.
A police and ASIO counter-terrorism raid in Orange, west of Sydney. The target, a 26-year-old alleged supporter of violent extremism, charged with planning to make firearms with a 3D printer. Unrelated, but on the same day, a warning that lockdowns have locked in potential extremists at home.
Alone, with little to do but search the internet.
Fearing that as much of the country re-emerges in coming weeks, so will the domestic terrorism threat.
I don't say this to scaremonger, rather to ensure we're clear-eyed about the threat.
A threat still present 20 years after September 11, with fears Afghanistan could again become a haven for extremists. And ASIO warns of increasing domestic activity among neo-Nazis and white supremacists.
Individuals and groups here in Australia do mean us harm and are planning acts of violence.
51 people are in jail for terrorism offences, with another 32 before the courts. Since 2014, 140 have been charged with terrorism. Australia's had 9 terrorist attacks, with another 21 disrupted. And with several jailed terrorists due for release in coming years, the government's reviving debate over laws that would place them under more intense community monitoring. Labor supports the laws but asks why they're taking so long.
It's been 4 years since the Independent Security Monitor first put forward this plan.
And 1 year since the legislation was introduced.
After a violent mob attacked the US Capitol on January the 6th, the Biden administration made so-called domestic terrorism a top priority. Resources in FBI field offices have been moved, more federal lawyers employed to prosecute cases. Attorney General Merrick Garland says it's the biggest threat facing America.
In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
Mr. Hinky stand here accused of using the dark magic known as analytics. This here knucklehead has blasphemed against the ways of the old school.
This heretic would have me rest my players. I say, run them all.
I mean, this notion that losing leads to winning. I mean, come on.
This guy used his sorcery to force me to make bad trade and give him all my draft picks.
Well, I don't know about that, Ronnie.
These analytics fools would have you believe the Earth is round. Do you see a curve anywhere? I mean, I'm just asking questions.
And now, with the hot hand, Sir Evan Turner is going to light Iggy on fire from a mid-range distance. Commence the long two.
Not clutch.
You know, the guillotine's probably more efficient.
Man, shut up, witch. All right, let's try again to light the heretic on fire.
Not today, Luddites.
It's Barack Obama!
A tan horse, really?
That's right. It is I, Barack Obama, 44th President of the realm, defender of rational thought and the use of data to make informed
Show us your birth certificate!
No one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing?
I'll be taking the numbers man with me.
Thanks, Obama. But where will we go?
To a place far away, where innovation and new ideas are welcome. The MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference.
Future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam.
Do you think Islam is at war with the West?
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
In Islam itself?
You're going to have to figure that out, okay? You'll get another Pulitzer, right? But you're going to have to figure that out. But there is a tremendous hatred, and we have to be very vigilant. We have to be very careful. And we can't allow people coming into this country who have this hatred of the United States.
I guess the question is,
and of people that are not Muslim.
I guess the question is there a war between the West and radical Islam, or is there a war between the West and Islam itself?
It's radical, but it's very hard to define. It's very hard to separate because you don't know who's who.
After 9/11, about 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the joint staff who had used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir."
Bomb Iran, bomb. Anyway.
I remember
John McCain, you know, saying bomb, 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 bomb Iran. I thought that was funny, but...
I'm in show business, yes? Why come to me?
Well, I'll tell you why, Mr. Morse. 5440 a fight, what does that mean?
It's a slogan. It's from the...
Remember the Maine?
Yeah, that's gotta be.
Tippecanoe and Tyler, too.
No, that's not the...
They're war slogans, Mr. Morse. We remember the slogans, we can't even remember the wars. You know why?
Why?
That's show business. That's why we're here.
I see.
Naked girl, covered in napalm. V for victory. 5 Marines raising the flag. Mount Suribachi. You remember the picture 50 years from now, you'll have forgotten the war.
True.
To go for, smart bomb falling down a chimney, 2,500 missions a day, 100 days. One video of one bomb, Mr. Morse. The American people bought that war. War is show business. That's why we're here.
And what do you do for the president? Why Albania?
Why not?
They gotta know at some point.
Who?
Who? You know, the public.
They gotta know?
Yes.
Stan, get with it. Who killed Kennedy? I read the first draft of the Warren report. It says he was killed by a drunk driver. You watch the Go For. What do you see day after day? The one smart bomb falling down a chimney. The truth? I was in the building when we shot that shot. We shot it in a studio, Falls Church, Virginia, 1/10 scale model of a building.
Is that true?
How do we know? You take my point?
Yes. All right. Okay. And you want me to do what?
We want you to produce.
You want me to produce your war?
Not a war, it's a pageant. We need a theme, a song, some visuals. We need, you know, it's a pageant. It's like the Oscars, that's why we came to you.
I never wanted us.
I want to start with the first Gulf War in Iraq 27 years ago, since this is probably the best example of just how low the establishment are willing to sink in order to further their selfish agendas. Now, as usual, the so-called elite were trying to convince the civilian population to go to war, but most people were unwilling. That, however, literally changed overnight when the world heard the horrific testimony of a young Kuwaiti girl named Naira.
I was the youngest volunteer. The other women were from 20 to 30 years old. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor. It was horrifying.
This truly shocking story of Iraqi soldiers ruthlessly killing innocent babies quickly spread around the globe.
Pulled from incubators and scattered like firewood across the floor.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
Rip babies from their incubators in Kuwait.
Even Amnesty International cited Naira's haunting testimony to back up the claim that more than 300 babies were mercilessly murdered at the hands of the Iraqi government. There was just one problem with the teenage girl's testimony. The whole thing was a fabricated lie.
Then a rather embarrassed Amnesty retracted its report. In London, spokesman Sean Stiles said, as hard as they tried, they could not confirm it.
We spoke to well over a dozen doctors of different nationalities who had been in Kuwait at the time, and they couldn't stand the story up, and it became quite clear to us that credible medical opinion was that this didn't happen.
And it wasn't just Amnesty International. The story did not hold up under repeated scrutiny by reporters and human rights investigators, including Andrew Whitley, executive director of the human rights group Middle East Watch.
You went to investigate.
Yes, we did.
You went to Saudi, and then after the liberation of Kuwait, you went to Kuwait.
Correct.
What did you find?
We went straight to the hospitals. We were particularly concerned with going to the maternity hospital at the Al Sabah complex. This is the largest hospital in the country, and it's a hospital that has perhaps a half to two-thirds of all the incubators in the country.
Did Iraqi soldiers remove babies from incubators?
No, they did not. Not at all.
So what the hell really happened? And who was Naira? Well, it turns out that this not-so-innocent teenage girl was really a part of the Kuwaiti royal family and the daughter of the Kuwaiti foreign ambassador to the United States. And her Academy Award-winning testimony that she gave was actually thanks to the coaching she had received from a massive public relations firm named Hill & Knowlton, a company with very close ties to the U.S. government.
Craig Fuller, who until last week was president of Hill & Knowlton, was George Bush's chief of staff when he was vice president.
I was involved in President Bush's campaign. I've also been involved in President Reagan's campaign, and this was like a campaign in every sense of the word.
He needed no introduction to the administration.
My relationships there kind of continue, even having left the government, and I think almost spontaneously, as the Kuwaitis were talking to us, we were also talking to the people in the administration to find out how we could be supportive with respect to the president's program.
The program was to go to war.
Now, as unbelievably unethical and psychopathic as this all is, it's not an isolated incident, guys.
I'm Madeline Wolford. And I'd just like to say that I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm just glad that I'm making a full recovery and everything's been going so smoothly, so that's all I have to say.
We're on the street here on 42nd and 2nd Avenue just to give you an idea of what's going on. It seems like it's rush hour right now. You can see we're at a phone booth, a lot of people trying to get in touch with their loved ones. I was one of those on a cell phone. Sir, were you able to get service with that? No. As a result of no service, you've got people that are just trying to get in touch with anyone who is downtown. Ma'am, can you just be careful? As you can see, some people obviously very emotional here. If you can just take a look over here. People trying to figure out what is going on. The whole consensus is out on the street. Not a lot of people really understand what is happening on the streets of New York. If you can take a look, a lot of people have come up to me, asked me questions. Do you know what's going on? A lot of people are unaware, but what we can tell you is that a lot of businesses are letting people go. If you could take a look down here on 2nd Avenue, a lot of the people are coming this way. Also, you're hearing fire engines, you're hearing police trucks, just a slew of activity as people are trying to make a mad dash. But the problem is, as we have been notifying people, all bridges and tunnels are closed, as well as what we are seeing, a lot of buses are not in service. So at this point, if you are in Manhattan, my understanding is you should stay in Manhattan or try and stay in this vicinity because the roadways are clogged. I'm going to try and talk to some people and see if they have an idea of what's going on. Ma'am, were you let out of work early today? You're on live, Channel 11.
I was at the work. I work on 55 Water for TD Waterhouse. We saw the whole thing.
You saw everything?
The plane hit. We saw the second plane. We saw when the thing blew up, the fire, and we lost it. Everybody just left. That was it.
Can you just tell me, you were on the ground. Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jeanette.
Jeanette. Oh, God. You're obviously very emotional. Jeanette.
I'm sorry.
I know. I could totally understand that. Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Tanya, as you basically informed some people what happened, assuming some people had no idea what was happening, what kinds of reactions are you getting from people?
Oh,
there
look at
goes
this.
the second tower.
You're going to the second tower. You're looking at this live right now.
Okay.
Both towers now completely destroyed of the World Trade Center. You have no idea how many people may have been in those buildings. We have no idea. This was a major communication center for this city, for this country. Many government offices in those towers. Amazing video as you're watching it now. It's not video, it's live. It's right before your very eyes.
I want you to listen to me because I'm only going to say this once. Never, ever trust the news again. Not only is it the same crisis actress, but I don't even know how many different things, like it's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different fake hoax shootings, gun grabs. And then this video I found that I've seen the video enough times of the original of this whole thing, and I could tell right away that it had been manipulated. And so I put this little thing together with I say real, I don't know that that's real, that's original, or the original release version, okay? And then they have the remastered version, the digitally altered, morphed, face swapped, whatever version on the right there. And you may say that it's the aspect ratio, but you know, they have the globe back there, and the globe is circular, it's round in both versions, and so it tells me that they only digitally manipulated the face. They made the teeth bigger, they did certain things to make them look different.
The worst days of my life. I guess I didn't know how much one person can love another until you just don't know where they're at. You just have no idea, and I'm just hoping for a sign of some sort that he's okay. And I believe in God, and I believe that God is with him, and that is what I hold on to. That is where my hope comes from.
My heart is with you, Emily, and I can't even pretend to understand what this is like for you. You know, if let's remain optimistic. If he's okay, you know, and in that first phone call with him, what's the first thing you're going to tell him? That first phone call with him, what's the first thing you're going to tell him? That God is our Savior, and that if we can make it through this, then there's nothing that can stand between us. And I just cannot wait to see his smile, and I'm just in hope that that time will come very shortly. And yeah. Emily Eisenman, I am thinking only happy thoughts for you. Thank you so much for the time. Let's stay in touch.
Robbie Parker, I assume he's going to come out to the microphones now and make a statement. Looks like the family is there, and they're getting ready to come to the microphone, so we'll listen in.
Okay. So my name's Robbie Parker. My family is one of the families that lost a child yesterday in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shootings here in Connecticut.
I know there have been difficulties these last few years. I know that the trust that binds the United States and Turkey has been strained. And I know that strain is shared in many places where the Muslim faith is practiced. So let me say this as clearly as I can. The United States is not and will never be at war with Islam.
In a letter dated 22 January 1870, Mazzini wrote to Pike. Now Albert Pike is this high mason who wrote the manual, if you like, of Scottish Freemasonry. He said the following: "We must allow all of the federations to continue just as they are. It must appear as things are as they were in the beginning, with their systems, their central authorities, and diverse modes of correspondence between high grades of the same right, organized as they are at present, but we must create a super right, which will remain unknown, to which we will call those Masons of high degree, whom we shall select. With regard to our brothers in Masonry, these men must be pledged to the strictest secrecy. Through this supreme right, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown." Now, Albert Pike wrote a letter to Mancini, and that was dated August 15, 1871, in which he propagated that there should be a world order, a one order where all nations are under the control of one central organization. And in order to achieve this, they planned, and there are numerous quotes for this, so I've put a number on the screen because some will say, I don't trust this, I don't trust that, I don't trust the other. Here are references down there, there are references up there, there will be references in other slides, so it comes from different sources. He said, and this was, by the way, on display in the British Museum and could be seen there until it was taken away. The First World War, to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia, protector of orthodoxy, and bring about an atheistic communistic state. Did that happen? Yes. Now that was written long before this event. Long before this event. This was written in 1871. This war broke out in 1914. The Second World War, that's also written long before the event, to originate between Great Britain and Germany, to strengthen communism as antithesis to the Judeo-Christian culture, and bring about a Zionist state in Israel. Did it achieve this objective? Yes. In fact, after this war, Israel, in its present form, was reinstated under the protection of Britain. And then, interestingly enough, a Third World War, a Middle Eastern war involving Judaism and Islam and spreading internationally. That's fascinating. Is that on the cards, or what do you think? Certainly sounds like we are on track. Well, here's another quote, just in case people don't like that quote. Mazzini with Pike developed a plan for 3 world wars so that eventually every nation would be willing to surrender its national sovereignty to a world government. The first war was to end the Tsarist regime in Russia, the second to allow the Soviet Union to control Europe, the third world war was to be in the Middle East between Muslim and Jews and would result in Armageddon. Interesting. Now, how were they going to do it? Let's read what Albert Pike wrote about these wars and how they were going to be unleashed. He wrote, quote, "We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist," so the destroyer and the atheist, "and we will provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism. Origin of savagery and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the minority of revolutionaries will exterminate these destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, will receive the pure light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. The destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time." Wow, what a clever plan. So you rub the two systems which you create up against the other. You create atheism as an antithesis to the Judeo-Christian culture. You have these two clash until they rub each other up, and then out of that you will get a new world order where you have a new religion which is far more esoteric and actually honors Satan. Isn't that a rather clever plan? Well, it's very successful. That is why Ordo ab Cao is the verse, if you like, that Freemasonry uses. This is one of their documents, remember, that I photographed in a Masonic lodge.
Donald Trump is doubling down on claims he made over the weekend that he saw thousands of Muslim Americans in New Jersey celebrating after the September 11th terror attacks. Trump first made the remarks at a rally Saturday and then stood by them Monday night at an event in Columbus, Ohio.
During a speech recently, I said that I saw in parts of New Jersey, Jersey City, but parts of New Jersey, I saw people getting together and in fairly large numbers celebrating as the World Trade Center was coming down, killing thousands of people, thousands and thousands of people. People are still dying over what happened to the World Trade Center, and they're dying a terrible death. And I saw people, and I saw them on television, and I read about it on the internet, and I read about it. So they said, oh, we can't find anything, Mr. Trump. The reporters are calling all day, all night. They want to find out, did Trump make a mistake? So I have some good people. And they checked and they checked. And believe me, it's being cleared off, plenty of stuff. They don't like that, because that's not good for the liberal cause, right? But they don't like it. And lo and behold, I start getting phone calls in my office by the hundreds that they were there and they saw this take place.
So what do you think of my Trump Home mattress collection by Serta? Finally, the same luxury and comfort I demand in my hotels.
Oh, they'll never count sheep again.
Listen, why don't you come work for me?
What do you have in mind?
Something you were born to do.
Welcome to room 9.
Looking good, number 9, looking good.
Where's your dignity?
I'm not gonna hurt you, Nicky. Remember me. Remember who I am.
That's a Freemason symbol.
Was Coronado in the Masons?
One ring to rule them all.
Maybe one of these Red Indians wandered into Whitechapel and indulged his natural inclinations.
President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have signed an agreement with the United Arab Emirates. Here on my channel, we focus a lot on symbols, symbolism, subliminal messages. So when I first saw this coin, it really blew me away. This right here is yet another example of the occult forces that work in the shadows in this world at work. It's similar to money magic. Money itself is sigil magic. The New World Order put its plans on paper and they called it money. Millions of people around the world are carrying this around in their pockets. Money itself is a primary example of this sigil magic, lesser magic. So it's interesting that they chose to place this imagery on a coin. Once again, we're back to money. And here they are showing us their plans on this currency. From a very basic standpoint, when I first looked at this imagery, I couldn't help but notice, starting from the base of the symbol as it works up, you see the sword itself starts to disintegrate into all of these different symbols. What's most interesting is the symbol they chose at the top, or it's the symbol at the end of the road. All of these symbols leading to the dove of peace, peace and security, peace and safety. But what comes after that? Saturn. Some of you may not understand the significance of this, but Saturn represents Satan. It goes back to Rome. They worshipped Saturn, celebrating Saturnalia, and the Greeks worshipped Kronos. Same deity, both represent Satan, which leads to the black cube. You also need to understand about the black cube of Saturn and the connection to the Jewish priests who wear the tefillin, or the black cube, on their foreheads. It's also interesting to note that we find the black cube in Mecca. And here you see the Muslims walking circles or rings around the black cube of Saturn, Satan. So leading up to this peace and safety and afterwards Saturn or Satan, we find that the sword guard is wrapped in prayer beads. Prayer beads only serve one purpose, and that's to count repetitive prayers. Both Islam and Catholicism share their love of prayer beads, which came from pagan traditions. On the guard of the sword in the middle, we can see the Babylonian sun wheel, and this goes back to Rome again and pagan worship. It's also known as the Wheel of the Year. And then we have the satellite dish with Wi-Fi and binary code. This seems to reflect our current state of Big Brother surveillance in some ways. And next we have the gears. The gears go back to time, and that goes back to Saturn. We also have a syringe to represent the vax scheme for their crown virus. Moving on from there, we have the date palm tree. And it's interesting, the Latin name for the date palm tree is the Phoenix dactylifera. When you look at all of the symbols on the sword, and so many of them have to do with technology, you may have been wondering to yourself, why is there a palm tree there? And I think I found the answer. It's not just a palm tree, it's a date palm. And what's most interesting about this is that the Latin term for the date palm is actually the Phoenix dactylifera. I believe that's why they put the date palm on the sword among all of the other symbols, showing us their end game. The eagle, sometimes the double-headed eagle, also the phoenix, is a symbol of great power and endurance. The Romans, the House of Habsburg, the House of Rothschild, the Nazis, and the United States have all used this symbol. But more specifically to the phoenix itself, we find that symbolism popping up all over the place. The phoenix as a symbol itself has become a very common symbol for the New World Order, or for this beast system. This last decade has seen a real explosion in symbolism on everything. Movies, TV shows, corporate logos. All of it is coming to light now. In this beast system, the phoenix is a symbol of chaos, total destruction, and then a rebirthing, a rising from the ashes. And this rising from the ashes, this phoenix, is the NWO itself, or that final Antichrist beast system. But as we find with many symbols, they have multiple meanings. It's interesting to note that in Islam, they view the date palm as the tree of life. But in Judaism, the palm represents peace and plenty. And of course, there's also that connection between the tree of life and the Kabbalah. Also, the palm tree was a sacred sign of Apollo in ancient Greece. So of course we find Apollo. Apollo is the sun god. He's another representation of Lucifer, the sun god. Sun god, Lucifer, Satan, Saturn. Something else to consider, finding that palm tree symbol among all of the symbols of technology. Perhaps it's a nod to how they've been placing these 5G towers in these palm trees all around America. Also, looking back on the sword, we find satellite, 5G, Wi-Fi, NASA. And all of those symbols are leading up to the dove that represents peace. I believe this harkens back to what the Bible says, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes." And lastly, we find all of this symbolism connected back to another example of the occult, or hidden in plain sight. The Denver International Airport murals. They've since covered up the Denver Airport murals, but you can still find pictures of them. These murals are another example of hidden in plain sight, also of lesser magic and predictive programming. So here we find this figure, and he has the eagle on his hat. In some ways he's resembling a Nazi or fascism. He has the same sword from the coin, and we also find the dove here. Of course, in this mural, this figure is killing the dove, or destroying peace. Right here on this mural, we can see the effects of the phoenix. Total chaos, total destruction, the death of peace, and then after peace comes Satan, or Saturn. Just like money, just like all the symbols we see in movies and TV shows and corporate logos, their plans have been in front of our face all along. Steadily, and more quickly now over this last decade, we're seeing all of these pieces come together and fall into place. Everything is moving quickly now towards the end game of this beast system. Total control and total enslavement of humanity.
It may seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. Hot air balloon, I could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give me all you got and don't hold me back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, can't nothing. Bring me down, the love is too hard. Bring me down, can't nothing. Bring me down, I said. Bring me down, can't nothing. Bring me down, the love is too hard. Bring me down, can't nothing. Bring me down, I said. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, ain't nothing. Bring me down, love is too hot. Bring me down, ain't nothing. Bring me down, I said. Bring me down, ain't nothing. like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Come on.
Is an incredible discrepancy between horrific events that she describes and her very, very cool demeanor. And if you look closely, you'll see duping delight throughout this video. You'll see duping delight throughout this video.
Told we're here at 3. It's after 10 past. He is in, isn't he? One of the big boys wants to see. He always pulls the same trick. Sends for you at 3 and sees you at 3:15.
Mr. Larkin to see you, JG.
Sorry for the captain. Sit down, Mr. Larkin.
Thank you.
Do you smoke these things?
King of Kings, size.
Yes. Were you surprised we got you to come here, Mr. Larkin?
Well, I couldn't see what the CWNS would want with me. Still can't.
Know anything about us?
Oh, I heard one or two things when I was working with the BBC.
What'd you hear?
CWNS set up midway between the government and the TV companies. Anytime the newsreel boys put out stuff with security classification, wars, weapons, political leaks, they get their film through this office.
What do we know about you? Larkin. Robert Santor.
Yes, it's a family name.
Good family. Good education. But you turned your back on all that, didn't you? Tried a little bit of everything. 1955, you wrote some plays for the BBC, then worked for them as a story editor. 1961, you got a 3-year contract as a director, which you didn't renew.
Well, the BBC weren't paying money.
Well, you're in the money now, aren't you? In 1968. There's your flat in Holland Park, your cottage in Hampshire, 2 children.
And a dog and a cat who commute with us to the country at weekends. Well, maybe you knew that already.
6 years ago, there were those shows you did on alcoholism, blood sports, slum clearance. People called you bright. Very bright. Other words they use.
Hard-hitting. Vital.
Now you do only 4 shows a year. The critics call them brilliant. They're high in the ratings, and they're, well, they're souffles. Little soft in the center. Don't think I'm complaining.
Oh, you can complain if you want to.
Just call it a friendly professional interest. I'd like to know what happened to alcoholism and blood sports.
Call it reaching the age of 35. Call it school fees, 2 fixed addresses. Call it joining the establishment. Call it being a socialist for 15 years in a country that'll never be socialist.
Good. There's your wife, Rachel. You married the girl next door. Your 2 children, Rebecca and Daniel, nice little family. 3 years ago, you got yourself a girlfriend. It was serious.
Where the hell did you get that file? Just tell me where it stops.
Lasted for 18 months. Your wife never knew about it, even when you nearly decided to leave her.
Who are you? Just the initials JG, that's all I know. Never met you before in all my life.
July the 25th, 1966. You finally decided to break it off with this woman. You said you loved her. You said you loved your children. It was 2 against 1. You had to add it up like that. Sorry, your cigar is burning my desk.
Sheila told you all this?
We have ways of finding things out.
But why? If it's blackmail, the thing won't hold water. It's all in the past. Well, there'd be pain, of course, for Rachel and the children. But you wouldn't get anything else out of it.
No, it isn't blackmail. We've just been interested in you for a long time.
Interested?
You went back to your wife because you said it was 2 against 1. I call that very responsible. We're interested in very responsible people. In fact, we have a little index for them. We call it their power quotient, a ratio of responsibility as against aggression. Yours is very low, 0.2. That's very low, just what we need. Sit down, please. The language must seem rather strange at first, but we take it very seriously. Just to show you how seriously, I'm going to tell you how we checked up on you. We call these things surgical transmitters. One was fitted inside you when you went into the Charing Cross Hospital 3 years ago. Appendix, wasn't it?
Transmitter? Are you trying to tell me that you listen to every word I say?
A machine does. Untouched by human hand. There's a little gadget in these things that ties up with the pulse rate. Puts a bleep onto anything that you're excited about saying. British.
Power quotient, surgical transmitters, high-speed tape. It's Doctor Who. I'm for the real world, Jack. Good afternoon.
I shall just have to give you an example. On July the 26th, 1966, you were talking to this girl, Sheila, about love. You said to her, I quote, "The kind of love I have for you, Sheila, well, it's bed love and it's more. It's staying in bed till 6 p.m. and saying I can't go to the office today. It's eating breakfast at twilight, laughing at leaves on the pavement."
I don't believe there's any such thing as these surgical transmitters. You got Sheila to tell you all this, then you wrote it down the way I might have said it. You're a good guesser.
Can you hear your heart beating?
It's eating breakfast at twilight, laughing at leaves on the pavement, getting a cab to a silly movie to Paris. It's moving when you're tired of staying still. And I've done it all before when I could do it with no ties. Now it'd just be irresponsible.
So there really is one of those things inside me. What do you want?
We want people with low power quotients. We want them to work for us. Nothing more sinister than that.
All this just to offer me a job?
Special sort of job. The newspapers talk about the corridors of power, the power elite. Let's just say we'd like you to join the club.
Oh.
There's a vacancy in our newsreel department. We'd like you to help plan the news for 1973.
Come again?
Plan the news for 1973. What are you doing?
I just want to make sure the sunlight's real.
I always tell people, news is the most highly developed form of fiction. The most difficult. Come on. I just want to show you something. There's no obligation to buy. Really. News requires imagination. News requires responsibility. We think you're well qualified. Please.
Double A security, sprinkler systems and other services do not operate beyond this point.
(1973). We've only roughed out the news for 1973. Nothing's been given the go-ahead yet, but this is the kind of thing we have in mind. Come.
Today, April 14th, 1973. First historic pictures by Radstar of the combined U.S.-Russian landing on the moon. Shown here are Majors Webb and Mikhailovich taking their first steps into the unknown, firing their retro rockets to land their spacecraft on the dust-covered surface. A comforting note for us stay-at-homes, both the Pentagon and the Kremlin have announced that the moon has no strategic value.
A comforting note for us to stay at home. I can't show you any film on this next model. We haven't photographed it yet. But this is the way it will sound.
June the 22nd, 1973. The State Department releases film of the ultimate weapon, codenamed Icarus. This satellite is equipped with a solid reactor. In layman's terms, it can freeze air solid, stopping all missiles, killing all forms of life. Icarus orbits at the same speed as the Earth, can hang in position over every major city that threatens the peace-loving nations.
Rather proud of this one. Come on. Please, sit down, Mr. Loudon.
September the 5th, 1973. The new phase in global warfare. War by example. At 4:32 our time, China took out the remote Indian border village of Bandor, unprotected by the Icarus network. After the first two 5-megaton H-bombs had fallen, the 9-way hotline finally
switch it off.
But
this is going to happen in 1973. You're going to make this happen?
No. We're going to make models, much cheaper. Then we photograph the models.
Fake newsreels?
That's fake newsreels. For the past 10 years, people have been looking at our fake newsreels and listening to our fake commentaries.
And they accept it for the truth. And you can do it. Stop 100 people in the street. How many of them have actually seen a missile or a satellite? They're just told they exist and they believe it.
Yes, you're getting there. I knew you would.
Well, now the moon rocket and the satellite, that you can get away with. That's too remote for people to grasp. It's too far away. But this... I mean, you invented this village on the Indo-Chinese border.
Oh, yes.
Well, somebody could check up.
Very mountainous territory up there. There'll be no survivors in 1973. No rescue work. Radiation scare.
Yes. You can do it. This could be the news for 1973.
Not necessarily exactly like this. We only plan in detail 1 year ahead.
Oh, you only plan 1 year ahead.
Hey, tell me, what is the news item that's bothered you the most in the past year, 1967?
Well, it has to be the new American intercontinental ballistic missile, the Boy Wonder, doesn't it?
Just the one I asked them to set up for you. The new ICBM, codenamed Boy Wonder, with a much talked about Mercury warhead.
Under the cover of darkness, a midnight display of massive military muscle, and leading the Pyongyang parade, a huge new weapon, which analysts say could be the world's largest intercontinental ballistic missile. Crowds mobilised to mark and celebrate the moment, and presiding over it all, Kim Jong-un, high up and looking down, defying coronavirus, which he says hasn't hit North Korea.
Let me take this opportunity to console the people all over the world who battle the disease caused by a malicious virus. I sincerely hope people can keep their health, happiness and smiles. Above all, I feel very grateful for all our people being healthy and sound.
Taking his place unmasked, flanked by followers, even embracing children, he claims his country is COVID-free. But few outside believe him. And earlier in the day, at events commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Workers' Party, state-run TV showed several people wearing face coverings. These events aren't uncommon, but remain an extraordinary sight. Goose-stepping in time, drilled to perfect precision. Even the tears seem highly rehearsed. But behind the spectacle, the message. The most totalitarian of states, in control and command of its power and people. Armed and isolated from the world, but united within. Laura Bundock, Sky News.
I really like Harry Potter. So,
It becomes a frustrating experience to wake people up from the matrix, so to speak, and constantly overhear people all around still completely misdirected and mired in false narratives. The day after the attack in Paris, for example, almost everyone immediately began talking about how crazy people in the world are today, changing their profiles to French flags and immediately posting support and condolences. And the irony was that no one had a clue about what really happened or why the entire world was made to watch. In addition to that, most people are lazy, distracted by a capitalistic existence, don't know they are brainwashed, and most times don't know what they are doing or why. Your thoughts are not your own, and you're being led by the hand every step of the way. Most people openly and defiantly do not trust their governments. People know better. However, simultaneously, they overtly trust each and everything their government does, says, and presents anyway. Because most people trust corporate news narratives where they get most of their information and never question any of it. Most people are still completely unaware that governments orchestrate and/or stage events all the time. This was always done throughout history and is still maintained today. This is nothing new under the sun. You can't even explain this to sheeple, because you might become the one under attack or ridiculed for trying to tell people the real truth. Unfortunately, we have a world of people who don't understand how the world works. The media is not for information, it's for indoctrination. It's owned and operated by a very small group, and the objective of news media is compromised. It's not about informing you about what's going on in the world. The main function is to carry out agendas and control what you think, how you behave, and what you believe.
Well, I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I was educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public. And it is not right what my colleagues do and have done in the past, because they are bribed to betray the people, not only in Germany, all over Europe.
Despite the fact that lots of our news is corporate-controlled fiction, we have been brainwashed to accept the news as the infallible truth. We are a society of drones who do not know how to think critically. And because of our media brainwashing, things often go very wrong, impacting the lives of citizens irreparably. All day, every day, just a few corporations cooperate each other's talking points, edit all the news, and dispatch everything you're meant to hear on all networks. There are several video compilations showing you just that.
Who are you really shopping for this holiday season? It's okay, you can admit it if you've bought an item or 2 or 10, for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it, Todd. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself. It's okay, you can admit it. If you brought an item or 2 or maybe 10 for yourself. It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2. It's okay, you can admit it. If you bought an item or 2.
2 or maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 10 items for yourself. It's okay, you can admit it, can admit it, can admit it, can admit it, can admit it.
I haven't any special effects up here, but perhaps with the proper sound. Blast off. And Robert Larkin, television director, high IQ, 35 years old, is scared. Scared by nothing. It doesn't work. It's a scientific impossibility. The same goes for the much talked about Mercury warhead. Perspex.
Well, if this rocket doesn't work, then the others?
They have a fireworks party at Cape Kennedy almost every other day. Well, you didn't really believe there were all these things whizzing about up there, did you? Sputniks and rockets. Astronauts crossing their legs for 8 days.
How long has this been going on?
Since Hiroshima.
And the H-bomb, you mean, that doesn't work either?
Right. Dirty.
Very, very dirty.
What was your first reaction? Relief. Oh, yes. Yes, it has to be relief. Only 12 people are allowed beyond this point. Most of them work in the photographic department, taking phony newsreel pictures of our models and processing film and so on. Sit down, please. Ah, pretty pictures from our stills department. The boy wonder.
Do you really think that missiles and satellites are mile out of the country?
No, not at all. I've only shown you the hard news. There are other things, much softer things we thought might interest you.
Well?
1973, we thought it might be time for an anti-teenage movement. A long-awaited return to maturity. Sherry. Perhaps even a religious revival.
Oh, I see. You want me to arrange the grand opening of Ruislip Cathedral. 1st of October, 1973. Mark the date down in my 10-year diary.
We are very serious about you. There are things about you we like very much. Qualities you have to offer. Qualities that we perhaps don't possess at the moment.
That's great.
Our file on you. I have to return to July the 25th, 1966, the day you broke it off with this girl, Sheila. You really did reveal rather a lot of yourself that day. But of course, if you really mind...
Help yourself.
You said to her, it won't work, Sheila, and she said something, and then you said,
You remember I went away with Rachel and the kids to the seaside? It was midweek and this huge stretch of sand was empty. Just a circle of footprints around 3 sandcastles and tracks out to sea. The whole damn day of my family marked out in front of me. The sun was going down. Rachel kept calling the kids to get dressed. She picked up buckets and spades, corny bloody things like that. I was up at the car. I looked at those footprints and I knew those people were slipping away. There were things I could tell them.
We rather like that bit about footprints. You see, in this job, some of us have got rather a long way away from the idea of footprints in the sand.
Those footprints were made by my children. Now you want me to scare the hell out of them with every bomb from A to H inclusive. Well, why? I mean, when did it all start?
1945. You may remember the Americans let off their 2 atomic bombs. Well, they didn't want other people doing the same thing. I mean, you do see that, don't you?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, to scare the people off, the Americans put it out, and the atomic bomb was halfway along the line to something much bigger, the hydrogen bomb. It didn't work. They spent 5 years in negative research.
Well, what about the Russians? They're supposed to have quite a pile of these things.
We were surprised when they started their tests. Then we got a few feelers from their Secret Service. Nowadays we work very closely together. Oh, all these stories about spies going off to Russia. Mr. Philby, remember? Just good copy for the Sunday papers.
Good copy. Well, the Chinese. I mean, they've just announced their bomb.
Yeah, we played along with it. We recorded their phony explosion. We're rather hoping the Chinese will come along, complete the pattern, you know.
In Vietnam, hundreds of people are being killed every week. Well, you can't do that with your models.
No. And you can't cure people of bad habits in 2 generations. They like to carry rifles, they like to put lines on maps, and we let them because we control the situation. There's no danger of world war. Just a simple choice for everybody, capitalism or communism, strawberry or vanilla. It all adds up to the same thing now we've got rid of the big bangers.
Well, how can you be sure that Johnson, Kosygin aren't working on other things? Poison gases, bacteria.
Pathetic, man of your intelligence. You don't want to destroy the world, neither do I. What makes you think the presidents are different?
Well, they've made some pretty good stabs at it in the past.
There wasn't the right sort of control then. Nowadays we know better. Politicians are easy to control. The grosser mentality boys who like to be photographed getting in and out of Daimlers in Whitehall. They come right at the bottom of our organization. A few rungs up the ladder, there are the people in the top secret factories. Just those in a position to know they're making weapons that don't really work.
There must come a time when somebody wants to use one of those weapons. I mean, somebody is standing there with a finger on the button.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Nobody presses the button. We control all the crises. We build them up and we shut them down.
We? Again?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. Near the top of the hierarchy, there are the economists, top civil servants, top brass in the military. Those men who are supposed to view the nuclear tests and so on. And above them, CWNS.
Right at the top. Classified World News Service. Just who the hell are you?
It's obvious, isn't it? Just a very few of the top people in communications in every major country in the world.
Oh, you mean you run all these magazines?
No, of course not. We just get them to take some of our copy every week. Television is much more important to us. It all happens so quickly.
Now, you say you can put out what pictures you like on television. Doesn't anybody try to stop you?
No, nobody wants to. 99.386% of the population wouldn't believe this conversation. And the rest are working for us. And they're the top minds, the really responsible people. They know they're guaranteeing the lives of their grandchildren the only foolproof way.
Scaring the hell out of their grandchildren. Well, I won't buy it.
You must admit there has to be some kind of control in this world of ours. Look at this. And remember that 1/4 of the world is starving. There are the full bellies and the empty bellies. Some of the empty bellies carry rifles. Well, we full bellies are getting a bit flabby. We're not very good with rifles anymore, so we've devised 2 ways to keep the empty bellies under control. One of them is this fictitious hydrogen bomb we've talked about. The other one is money. Enough money to fill some of the empty bellies and put a hopeful smile on the faces of the others. A great wall of money all around Britain. And it's no secret that the British economy is in trouble at the moment. So we have to put that right too. To stay alive, we have to control the people in this country. Scare an ostrich, buries its head in the sand. You scare a hedgehog, it rolls itself up into a ball. When a woman's frightened, she goes out and buys herself a hat.
You mean you scare us so that we'll buy more, so that money moves quicker, production moves up?
We don't say scare when we talk about human beings. We say threaten them emotionally. And there are all sorts of ways of not just the big ones like the hydrogen bomb. Overcrowd them a little with bad planning. Sell them too many motor cars. Anything to keep them a little bit removed from reality. Nowadays, people don't work for money. They work for the idea of money. They don't even love for love. They love for the idea of love. They only hate for the idea of hate. It took us 5 years to find a non-addictive drug, one we could pay off against the hard drugs. LSD.
You marketed that?
Oh, yes, of course. And for a very good reason. Some of these protest movements were getting a little bit too close to the mark. LSD gave them nice little hallucinations. Made them talk like 3-year-olds. Throw flowers at policemen. Now we talk terms.
You're not still going to ask me to work for you?
I'm afraid I've had to put all this rather bluntly. You see, there wasn't really very much time. It must be rather a shock. Well, I mean, most people realize that the world is controlled from about 6 big cities. But it must be rather shocking to learn that a 1/6 of the world is controlled from this building.
You mean you?
Oh, no. I only rate an office on the 7th floor. There are 2 other offices above this one. And a giant computer system. Link number 4 in world control.
A computer?
And what's so remarkable about that? It's just a machine that can store a vast amount of information.
A machine that knows too bloody much.
Now you're being hysterical about it. Computer's very simple. You feed data into it. Anything from the Wall Street closing prices to the North Atlantic weather reports.
And you get decisions. That machine's taken you over.
It's just a machine. Extra hands for the people who know how to control it.
Well, this one above us, it's square in a box.
Yeah, I suppose you could call it square in a sort of a box.
Do you know why I go away at weekends? To get away from people in boxes. They live in boxes. They get their thoughts, their problems and their answers out of boxes. And I like to get away at weekends because they're not people anymore. Now, you know all about me. My cottage in Hampshire. But did you know that there's a line of trees that goes right up past the house? And the noise they make is like the sea. Did you know that I find it difficult to sleep in the country? And I like to go and stand in the garden before dawn. And I feel good because I know that my wife and my children are asleep inside. And I like to go out and walk past the wet hedgerows until I can see pasture land and the smoke from the cottages in the village.
This may be all very well for one of your grassroots programs, but I'm afraid time is running out. I ought to tell you, we pay a great deal of money. We can afford to. We save such a lot on things like the national defense budget, so on. We would start you off at £250,000 a year.
Oh.
Rising to £1 million when you make the Ministry of Morality, which I know you will.
Will you let me out of here?
One little point. I should have told you about these surgical transmitters. There's enough of this stuff inside you at this moment to kill 6 people. There's a button we can press. I'm sorry about the dramatics. Our boys call these things the oral contraceptive. Keeps them from talking too much.
So there must be one of those transmitters inside you. Who presses the button? Extra hands. All this stuff about the computer being extra hands for the men who know how to control it. That machine controls you.
You start on Monday.
So now.
Being fair doesn't agree with me, but the price sure is right.
This is so perfect. Amanda Beckett is single. And on the night of this party, a party I'll be attending, a party she'll be attending, it's all falling into place. It's like it's fate. It's mine. My own. My precious.
Precious?
I see you.
Lass einen am Leben. Dann tut die anderen.
It is true. Gilbert, what if something were to happen to you? Something unforeseeable, something sudden, random.
Make a deal with me, kid. You can have the car and everything that goes along with it. Looks like we got ourselves a contract. We shake hands. If you can't trust the man you've hired to kill your wife, then why know you?
That's a Freemason symbol.
Smooth to the touch.
Easy, Tiger.
This ruby, fallen from the very brow of ancient kings, a true crown jewel.
Suitor's pain.
What a man!
You have to go with what he says. He's never let us down yet.
Oh, I see. Another mystery.
Have one of your people check her out.
You know I can't do that. One whisper of this wouldn't just destroy Deputy Prime Minister Strong, it would bring down the whole government.
Where you want it?
Bay 12, please. I love DJing. I love music. What's your dream playlist?
What is the profession?
Yeah, which profession are we talking about?
Just look at it. Is it a legal profession? Of course it's legal. It's the name of my profession.
I'm trying to read it.
Okay.
It's too many diamonds.
Yeah, that's too bright.
That's too bright.
Well, anyway.
Oh, Mason, are you a Mason?
Of course I am.
Okay. You have a secret ceremony?
Well, you might as well put your pinky out when you drink your drink.
Of course I am.
Wow. Put your pinky out.
Are you involved in the secret ceremonies? Stop it.
Destroy it!
No.
You with me, Jimmy?
And the book says we may be through with the past, but the past ain't through with us.
I shall tell you where we are. We are in the most extreme and utter region of the human mind. A radiant abyss where men meet themselves. I see you. There is no life in the void. Only
don't understand that. I don't understand, sir.
Hell, Natalie. We're in hell.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
So glad Jesus saved my soul. Oh, I'm so glad Jesus saved my soul. You know, I'm so glad. Oh, Jesus saved my soul. Well, He saved my soul and made me whole. Now you know I'm so glad Jesus saved my soul. Oh, I'm so glad Jesus saved my soul. You know, I'm so glad, oh, Jesus saved my soul. Well, He saved my soul and made me whole. Now He put love in my heart, judging. I'm so glad about, oh, love in my heart. You know, I'm so glad about. Now He put love way down in my heart, and I'm so glad. Yes, I am. Well, He saved my soul and made me whole. Now He put joy in my heart, judging. I'm so glad about, oh, joy in my heart. You know, I'm so glad about. Now He put joy in my heart, Lord, and I'm so glad. Yes, I am. Well, He saved my soul and made me whole. Now He gave me peace. Yes, He did. Judging, I'm so glad about, oh, peace. And yes, He did. You know, I'm so glad about. Now He gave me peace in my heart. Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, I am. Well, He saved my soul and made me whole. Said that I'm glad He saved my soul. I'm so glad He saved my soul. Jesus saved my soul.